Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek and part 3 in the Elite Danger series. I was originally only going to do 2, but I've had a lot of questions about HOTAS, and I did that boneheaded reprojection thing where I kept that setting on. So a lot of what I showed the first time around was a lot lower than it needed to be. So I want to give you guys an idea of what you can achieve with a higher end card. If you've got a lower end card, just in terms of reprojection, and you're finding you have to sacrifice all your eye candy, and then you're still kind of struggling, yeah, reprojection's going to do that for you. It's going to help. Where I say it's as needed is in those situations. Even mid-level cards, there might be the odd game that's not that optimized. You might use reprojection. For a high-end card, it's going to be the opposite of that. Most of the time you won't. You know, you might have a rare time, like with some alpha version, but basically anything that's released that's out there, you shouldn't have an issue. Instead, before you use reprojection, because again, it's not a true frame rate, crank some of your options down, right? So what I do is I always use 90 as my guideline. Always try to keep 90 frames per second. So pick VR high if you've got a high-end GPU, pick VR low if you've got a low to mid even, I would say, and then tweak up gradually, looking at your frame rate, the 90 frames per second, and that kind of jerkiness that you get when VR is struggling. So with my reprojection now turned off, let's take a look at those settings, all right? So I'm in a space station. It's one of the most demanding parts of the game. So we're going to look at my options. I'm getting 90 frames per second inside the station. Again, use that as my benchmark. We go into graphics. We go into quality. You're going to see model distance. I've got it set all the way to the max. I love being able to see far in the distance in a first-person game, or hell, even over the shoulder. Texture quality, set as high as it can go. Shadow quality, I've opted to go low because it comes at a huge performance cost, shadows, but doesn't deliver to me that much. I'm fine with low versus high, so I keep that on low. Bloom and blur I've got off. Anti-aliasing I've got off because I'm using a form of that with super sampling. Ambient occlusion I've got off. Everything else, texture-wise, field of view-wise, set to the maximum. Ultra, high, ultra. HMD image quality, which is your Vice or Rift directly, also cranked, as with the terrains, field of view, and quality. All right? I'm going to show you, basically going out of the space station is what we're going to do here, how smooth everything looks and how much better it looks at this setting. Not going to put the HMD on for this just because I don't want it to shake too much. If I keep it on my lap like this, you're going to get a clear view, but it's still going through the HMD. You can see right here with the green light and how I just moved it. So there we go. So let's take off. So I'm still maintaining 90 frames per second. I had it on originally via Fraps, and I'll probably use another one, but what Fraps was doing was taking the real frame rate and then overlaying on top of it the frame rate for the video, because I'm using Open Broadcaster, which is 30 frames per second that I'm recording in. I should have picked 60, but all good. Anybody who has a 1080 can quickly verify that that is the frame rate you're going to get. So we're going to look back at the station. Again, smooth as butter. So use 90 as your benchmark and tweak accordingly. If you start dropping frame rate, change some of those settings. And keep in mind some of the settings that I mentioned. You might like those way more than I did and not want to sacrifice them, sacrifice elsewhere. But most of those settings are ones that provide a huge performance penalty for not a huge return. They're more atmospheric. For me, it's texture quality. That's huge. 90 frames per second, huge. FX quality, all those things are the things that make the game to me just so much more visually appealing. Not to say that, you know, something like ambient occlusion isn't awesome to look at. It is. But if I had to choose between textures and ambient occlusion, I'd probably go with textures, to be honest. I mean, that's just my personal preference. So take from that what you will, but you can see it's smooth here. Everything plays nice. So there you go, guys. Just a quick video for that. But before I go, let's just take a quick look at HOTAS so you can see how I have that set up. All right. If you go into options, you go into controls, you're going to have a lot of presets depending on what you have attached to your computer. It's not going to provide you presets for things you don't have attached. So don't despair just because you don't see it in there, maybe your gamepad. As soon as you connect that gamepad, it will show up. So if I go into here, you'll see I've got the Saitek X52 Pro connected. Sure enough, it shows up, as does the generic joystick, right? Classic keyboard and mouse, and then the Saitek X52 Pro. So what I did is I chose Saitek X52 Pro, and much like I suggest with the graphics, I then tweaked keystrokes for both voice attack and my personal preference accordingly. I probably kept 95% of the presets. Where I differed, and that's what I'll show you right now, is reset HMD orientation. That's where you reset your HMD so it's centered. The default for that is F12. I've added backspace because F12 is also screenshot, and I didn't want to disable screenshot in another program's Fraps. I know I could have changed it there, but anyways, I just picked backspace in game. For me, that's good enough. So voice attack will use the backspace button and reset, right? I've got the insert key for the landing gear because I hate reaching down and having to flick it. I like to do that by voice. And finally, I think one of the only other ones, if we go to flight throttle or flight miscellaneous. So toggle shift drive, right? I've added the trigger just as an example. So when I'm flying, and that's the lower trigger on the Saitek with the pinky, which also functions as a switch, meaning pinky with something else, you can program crazy amount of options, right? But for me, pinky trigger is frame shift drive. So while I'm flying, pinky, I can engage frame drive for super cruise or jumping to another system. And then there's a few more, but again, it's all just personal preference. But that's all you need to do. You can see all of this stuff here. Targeting is pretty much presets. What I didn't do since I reinstalled my computer is, again, some of the voice attack stuff. So as soon as I went in here, I was reminded what I was missing, right? So I always assign select target ahead and cycle next target. These two for voice attack. Because I don't want to fumble for keys and stuff during a battle. I just talk to her while I'm flying and shooting. And that's, my personal taste, but highly recommend it. And then there's probably only about 2 or 3 more scattered throughout. Everything else is voice attack. They did a good job with the presets for the Saitek, in my opinion. Other joysticks I can't comment on. I don't have them. I did have the Thrustmaster 4. Same thing. They've added a preset for that now. It's not bad, right? There you have it, guys. Just a quick video. That'll be it for the Elite stuff, unless I get a lot of specific requests. There's way too many other games that I want to get to in benchmarks, but for those of you who asked, I hope you've enjoyed it and found it informative. Any other questions on it, just shoot them in the comment section, and I'll get back to you there, or via Twitter, whichever. All right, as always, guys, till the next video, trying to get a news video out next, and of course, I'm working on those other gaming and benchmark videos. Cheers, guys.